Prince George's County leaders are beginning an important dialogue about the future, and that discussion really begins in earnest today. Executive Rashawn Baker and school CEO Kevin Maxwell, they're going to be at Central High School in Capitol Heights. For a town hall meeting. At issue, the executive's request to the county council to set property tax rates at a level beyond those set by a decades-old tax limitation. Tom Dernoga is a former member of the Prince George's County Council. He's with us now. On his way here is Curtis Valentine. He's a parent activist. We'll be getting his perspective as well. Tom Dernoga, welcome back. Good to have you with us.
Thanks for inviting me back. It's been a few years.
It's been a few years. But isn't it interesting to observe the county at this moment right now, because you have a guy who appears to be a popular county executive, just reelected to a second term, and he's making a big ask of your former colleagues on the council, and obviously by extension, the electorate, the residents of the county.
It's quite a big ask. I think from the experiences I've seen in the last few weeks, months, the public's rather angry. They're not happy with what has been proposed, and I think they feel that Mr. Baker is not going about it in the correct manner. When you have a decades-old tax cap that's been brought up before, Mr. Baker participated in the effort to repeal it years ago. It failed miserably. The voters have spoken, I think, quite loudly on this. As a matter of fact, in 2007, Mr. Johnson wanted to raise the telephone tax, and that was sent to the voters, and the voters said resoundingly, no, thank you. And what I find interesting in this is one of the reasons the voters have given, when you speak to them over the years, is a lack of trust in how the county government's going to spend their money and how the school system's going to spend their money. When you work around the trim tax cap with a little tricky maneuver in Annapolis and then say, it's legal, I want your money, but trust me how I'm going to spend it, the lack of trust has already been sort of accentuated. And I think that's a problem that the county council is going to see.
Can we put into context some of the numbers? What if the executive's proposal were to be adopted by the council? How much more would the average resident pay, and what would it mean for the schools in terms of new revenue?
Mr. Valentine might be able to address that better. I think they're looking at raising $135 million, $136 million new dollars this year, which will go straight to schools, which will then create a burden in future years, because you can't reduce the number, you can only increase the number.
Because of state law.
State law requires that you never reduce the number, and then they propose $50 million the year after and $25 million the year after that. Now, what it works out to, I don't have the figure.
It's a 15-cent per $100 of home value bump that he's seeking, right?
Right. I think for Mr. Valentine, it's probably $500 on his house. It's probably about $500 or $600 on my house. I think for people in a little bit lower bracket, let's call it, it's probably in the $200 to $300 range. 15 cents times 200,000 is $300.
Curtis Valentine, welcome. It's good to have you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks very much for coming in today. Make the case that the executive is on solid ground when he asks the council, and by extension the citizens of Prince George's County, to go beyond a tax cap that has been in place for quite a long time.
Well, I think the case has been made, by the state legislature, as my fellow Prince Georgian has said in 2012. The state legislature gave all county executives and the mayor of Baltimore the power to tax the residents specifically for education, which is what I think County Executive Baker is doing and is doing. I think the case for education had been made even by my fellow panelist, Mr. Dernoga. Actually, he has made the case in the past that we are underfunding education. In 2004, in a Laurel Leader, he mentioned that Montgomery County funds their students at $10,000 per student. Prince George's County funds their students at $7,000 per student. And that's in addition to having to serve students with high poverty, high ELL, students who are in transition. And that $3,000 gap continues to this day, where Prince George's County spends $3,000 less per student than our colleagues in Montgomery County. At the same time, we're trying to compete for workforce. So I think the county executive is responding to that, something that all Prince Georgians believe is deserved to them and to our children. And I think Mr. Dernoga has made the case in the past for us to say that as a county we need to lead, and education is the way forward.
Is he right?
He's absolutely right. I made that impassioned plea back in 2004, and you know what happened? We marched on Annapolis. We got the Thornton Commission approved. They put $100 million or more per year into the county school system for 5 years. And you know how much of that money went to instructional salary increases? Less than $100 million. So, yes, I was advocating for the state to recognize the wealth disparity. We have an income inequality issue. It's a dramatic income inequality issue. It was worse then. It's really not a whole lot better now. So we advocated for the state to restructure the formula so that the Prince Georgians who are already paying their fair share will not be overtaxed. That occurred. So yeah, I'm actually proud of what I did at the time. We succeeded, but then the money did not go where it's supposed to. Okay, so when you look at in fiscal year 2003, 40% of the budget, school system budget, was going to instructional salaries. Shortly thereafter, when Mr. Baker got the elected school board thrown out and replaced with the appointed school board, the percentage going to instructional salaries dropped for several years till it was down to the mid-30s. Flattened out. When Mr. Baker became county executive from 2011 to 2013, 31% of the school system budget goes to instructional salaries. So we're now, so it's actually barely a blip above what it was 12 years ago in terms of total dollars, but the budget went from $1.1 billion to $1.7 billion. So this is why people don't trust that the money is going to go where it's being said.
So everyone, I think, believes that the two most important things that determine whether a child anywhere gets a great education is what happens at home and the quality of the teacher in his or her classroom. Let's leave the first for another day because it's very important, but it's not the topic today. As it relates to the teacher in the classroom, is the county sort of a training ground for neighboring political subdivisions that can pay more? And if that's the case, isn't there a kind of a bottom line reality that you've got to meet the salaries of a Montgomery, a Howard, a Fairfax, whomever, or you're continually going to be like the feeder program, the training ground for these communities that can lure away the best by saying, hey, we know you're good. Come here and make more money. And to your point, Tom Dernoga, how do we fix the system so that the money gets where it's needed most?
Can I say something?
I'd let Mr. Valentine go.
Well, I would say first and foremost, I'm a former educator myself, 8th grade language arts teacher at Oxon Hill Middle School. My wife is an administrator in our county. What I'll say is, and what teachers are saying all over the county is, people do not go into education for the money. A teacher, someone does not go into education to make a lot of money and to become wealthy. They go into education because they love children and they believe that they've been called to become a teacher and they're passionate about it. At the same time, we live in a D.C. metro area. In Prince George's County, our salaries are 6th in the region. In the last 7 years, we've lost over 7,000 teachers who've left the Prince George's County public school system. To your point,
they're not leaving the profession.
They're leaving our county. We are a mass exporter of talent to the region. And when you have that many teachers leaving our system, and we put so much money into recruiting them and training them, there is loss. And I think that's one look at it. The other look at it from the student's perspective. If you're a student in the middle of the school year, a teacher decides to go to another district, or if you're a child like my child, who's a Montessori student, which has 3 years of the same teacher. If my son's teacher leaves in his 2nd year or his 3rd year, the model in which we put into our system to create that Montessori sustainability is lost. So we look at it from the teacher's eyes. I mean, the teacher's eyes who's leaving, and they're making decisions based on cost of living in the DC metro area. At the same time, look at the view from the parent or the student who's saying, "Where's Miss Johnson? Where did she go? She cared for me. She really got to know me." And I think our obligation is to our parents and most importantly to our students.
Tom.
I think there's a lot of misinformation, and I think that the issue is not really getting looked at correctly. What the county is trying to do, what Mr. Baker is trying to do in the school system, they want to compare us to Montgomery, D.C., Virginia, and say, well, it's really expensive around here. Well, that's only true if you want to live in Montgomery, D.C., or Virginia. If you actually want to live in Prince George's County, it's the most affordable county in the region. It's one of the reasons we have a wealth disparity is because rents, house values are incredibly low compared to the region. When you look at where do we stand with the state, we're 6th in the state in terms of teacher pay for starting teachers and for experienced teachers. We only pay $1,500 a year less. This is based from MSDE fiscal year 2014, so last year. We pay $1,500 less in Montgomery County for starting teachers. If you talk to teachers, they don't leave the school system for money. They leave the school system for conditions of the working conditions. Lack of discipline, lack of support from the administration, rigid programs because we're all tied into the tests. You go back to the MISPAP test, No Child Left Behind, now you got Park. Their creativity is hindered. They leave for a lot of reasons. It doesn't have a lot to do with money. When you look at the higher end salaries, yeah, we're well behind Montgomery County at the mid to upper level teachers, $13,000, $14,000. But when you look at the other counties like Anne Arundel, which is we border, which Mr. Maxwell came from, we actually pay about the same salaries there.
You don't have to move to Montgomery to teach there. You just have to get in your car.
No, but the point is, it's a cost of living issue. It's so expensive in the D.C. area is the argument. But actually, if you live in Prince George's, it's actually the least expensive place to live in the area because your biggest cost is going to be your housing cost. Now, I just want to point out, I was a parent.
Hang on.
Yeah.
Hold that thought if you would for just a moment. We're up on a break. We'll take a break here. When we come back, on air and online, more of our very important conversation with Curtis Valentine and Tom Dernoga, former member of the Prince George's Council, as the county debates the executive's budget request. News Talk continues right after this.